We're here in Barcelona, Spain at the moment. We filmed the video in the apartment that we're staying because it was too dark in there, so we had to come out and the rain just caught us. Hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know what you think. See you guys in my next video. A vlog! Hey guys, I'm Beck and I am a final year med student in Australia. Welcome back to my channel. Thanks for coming back. If you're new here, thanks for dropping in. I have been making vlogs about my time in med school as a final year student. If you're interested, check out my other videos. I'll have linked them down below. Today is my first strictly informational video. It's coming a little earlier than expected because of reasons that I explained in my last video, but I do plan to do many more of these into the future. After starting my OSCE study series, I had a few comments asking about my OSCE doc that I mentioned. Thank you guys for your comments. Today I'm making this video for you, so I hope you enjoy it. Let's get on with it. In this video I'm going to talk about, firstly, why I made the OSCE doc for my med school OSCE study. Secondly, how I make it. Thirdly, how I structure the document. It's actually documents. There's many documents now. And finally, most importantly, what I wish I knew before I started making this document. My tips for you if you want to do something like this yourself. Firstly, why I made my OSCE docs. Many a times I have walked out of my exam into my holidays only to return to school or uni, whatever it was at the time, to realize that I had now forgotten all of that beautiful exam information that I once knew. Time and time again, this proved to be largely not much of a problem actually, because we didn't seem to reuse or bring through that information that we learned into the next areas that we were studying, or it didn't even seem to be that relevant unless I was going to work in a particular area, in a particular job. At the end of your medicine years, however, you can't just burn your notes, unfortunately. Well, you can, but, well, here's why. The OSCE. OSCEs are assessed on a broad range of topics that the only way you can learn is to gather them over time. And what med school does is gradually introduces these topics and builds on the knowledge throughout the years. They set you up in med school so that the information that you're learning in your earlier years carries through and remains relevant, a lot of it, in your final years of medicine. In third year, this was the first time that I was given a really big, overwhelming list of topics that we were supposed to know for our OSCEs that were all apparently topics that were fair game for us to be examined on at the end of that semester. We had an almost corresponding tutorial series on these topics on the list that we were given in most cases, but we quickly realized that we'd walk away from these tutorials and lectures without a comprehensive or strong enough grasp on the topic to probably be able to pass the OSCE. You can only do so much in an hour or so. In an attempt to fill this deficit, I googled textbooks and web pages, approaches to OSCEs, anything I could about OSCEs, and at the end of it I couldn't find one resource that matched up well enough to what my uni was asking for me. So the only thing I could do was to make my own. So I took this list, I transferred it into a Word document, and with all these topics in the list, I now started to just pull information from different textbooks and different web resources, whatever was most appropriate for that particular OSCE case, and from there it grew and grew and grew and grew. In fourth year we were given another list, a bigger list, which encompassed all of third year and more, and then in fifth year again a bigger list, all of fourth year, all of third year and more. So all I did was keep adding. That original list became so big that I actually ended up splitting it up into multiple different documents. Now I haven't just got one OSCE doc, I've got an OSCE doc for internal medicine and GP, general sort of stuff, one for ONG, one for peds, one for psych, one for surgery, one for ethics and protocol now, one for emergency, one for psych. The internal medicine GP type 1 that I'll show you today is the biggest one easily, but I'll give you a little bit of a look at some of the other OSCE docs I made as well. So that is why I made the OSCE docs. Our university gave us a list of things that we needed to know, and I couldn't find a resource that was already existing that gave me that information all in one nice tidy place. Your university list will likely be a little bit different to mine. When I started, I was never intending for it to be something worthy of sharing, and thus it has ended up something probably not quite worthy of sharing. Med school quickly made me smash my perfectionist mindset, and I'm really glad about it. This document is in line with that in that it's unfinished, unpolished, and even unstarted in some sections due to me attempting to prioritize what was important, whether it be gathering more info or restructuring different sections of the OSCE doc, or going for a walk, going to the gym, spending time with people that I love. So I'm very sorry it's not some comprehensive, beautiful document that I could just give to you. On to the next section, how I make it. Usually when you're revising for university, you would use your lecture slides and tutorial notes directly for your study, because often the lecturer sets the exam question and the information will come from those slides. OSCEs are much more generalized and you won't necessarily always get a teaching session on the topic. You don't need to take the perspective of a specific lecturer. There's information already out there and heaps of different resources that you can use to understand the topic. So it starts off with one of those topics in the list that I need to know for my OSCE. I'll go and scan through the different textbooks that I have and look at the different web resources that I like. I now know after using those resources for a while which ones are more likely or less likely to have the type of information that I'm looking for. But in any case, just scanning the information that's available. In third year, I would use lecture notes and tutorials and things like that for information, not so much anymore. Textbooks that I like the digital versions the most because of reasons I'll talk about in a moment. Davidson's, Murtaugh's, Unofficial Guide to Passing OSCEs, Oxford Medical Handbooks, Toronto Notes. These things will probably be quite personal to how you like to read and learn about topics. Lots of people like Harrison's. In terms of websites, I've talked about these a little bit in my first OSCE study series video. I love websites like OSCE Stuff, OSCE A, Geeky Medics, Life in the Fast Lane, Oxford. It's getting dark now, guys.
You got 14 minutes till the sunset.
What? I will link all the ones that I found helpful down below. When it comes to textbooks, I use the digital copies because I love, wherever possible, to copy and paste the information, and then I delete out what I don't want. I find for me it's much faster than writing the information out itself, probably just because I'm not that fast at typing. And my personal approach is to add in all the information I could possibly need and then delete what turns out to be redundant or superfluous later. Again, it saves me time in that I never have to go back and double check the information from that resource. Got it there in one place. I can make the decision later when I have a bit more mind space for it or when it becomes relevant to me. One of my favorite things about making this document was the fact that I could add pictures into it. So I can take screenshots of really great diagrams, tables, flowcharts, things like that are really good learning aids. So you'll see lots of different screenshots throughout my OSCE Doc. Alright, next section. I'm going to talk about the format of this document. At the start here I have a contents page, and you can see that I split things up into systems such as cardiovascular system, gastrointestinal system, neuro, endocrine, etc. Depending on which specialty document it is, I'll have different major categories that I split things up into, whatever is most appropriate for that specialty. Here you can see the first example of how rough and unpolished this document is. Those blue highlighted sections that you can see, they're things that I've highlighted in that really harsh color because they're unfinished sections that I wanted to get back to. So I leave that there as a prompt. At the start here I actually have those lists from third year that I've kept to be able to refer back to if I'd like. I then have a history template, so that's something that I built on from second year. Just working out a nice flow of questions for different systems, when you have a different focus for your differential, how you can change that up, how you can ask things in a way that flows really well, and importantly in a way that's really respectful and not intimidating for the patient. I keep a section with a few random techniques and systems I like to remember, such as Murtaugh's prompt system for differential diagnoses. Then I have a page of serious conditions that you don't want to miss and diagnostic triads. Both of those are from Murtaugh's textbook. They're at the start because they're not specific to any one particular system. Then going on to the actual heart of the book, the systems. Within each system I then have different sections for the testing areas. So for example, if we go down to neuro, you can see I have headache, stroke, hearing loss, tinnitus, changes in balance and coordination, dizziness, vertigo, loss of consciousness or collapse, and seizure. I have a whole separate section for vision or eyes more generally, which I've just tacked on after neuro. Let's look at abnormal vision. Under each testing area or OSCE topic, I have first a little bit of space that I just put in some extra information if I want some background. Under abnormal vision, I have a few notes about visual failure from Murtaugh's, including the pitfalls of visual failure and when to refer. Then on the next page, I have the pathology of the symptoms because it's something that I needed to do some more reading to understand. Things like I couldn't figure out why both cataracts and glaucoma experienced halos when they seem like completely different pathologies. It turns out it's because they both have corneal edema. So if someone's experiencing halos in their vision, I start to think about those two conditions. This stuff goes in the document for me in this case because it was new information and I knew that I needed to revise it a few different times to actually remember it. Now it's on hand for me whenever. Generally, under each OSCE topic I have two major sections. So under abnormal vision, I'll have the approach section and I'll have the condition section. Let's go into the approach section. The approach section is how I approach the OSCE. Therefore, this includes the following. First, when I get my presenting complaint, I think about the differentials. Then you take a history, then you do an examination, then you do investigations, then you manage the patient. So that is how I set up the approach section. Abnormal vision is a very broad topic. You'll see I have different differential lists. This first differential list is arranged anatomically, including all types of disturbance of vision. The next differential list is acute or subacute painless loss of vision. I've got basically the same list next, but this time from the eye manual because they order it differently from Murtaugh's prompt. Here's an example of a picture that I found really helpful that I've included. I find visualizing the differentials that way makes it a lot easier. Some more pictures that I use to formulate differential diagnoses and other differential lists, this time for progressive bilateral visual loss. You want to be able to call on or formulate different lists depending on what you get in the STEM when you sit down in your 2 minutes reading time. Now you can see my history dot plotted out in the order that I'd like to ask it. I wouldn't ask all of these questions in all cases, but again, I've included all the information and I omit it as needed depending on where the history takes you. Next to the history, I've also included some diseases and disorders to exclude or consider because you want to think about asking those again depending on where the history directs you. I've actually put the investigations on this page directly after history because it just fit more nicely because my eye exam happened to take up a whole page. So I've got the examination over here on the next page, the investigations back on the page before, and I haven't got any management section in this abnormal vision section because all the management is actually quite specific, so that will just go in my next section. The next section is the conditions part of the OSCE topic. In this section I simply list out the conditions and I write out the details related to that condition only. This will often be structured as the definition of the condition, what history, examination and investigations you'll do for that condition and what findings you would expect, and any specific management related to that condition. In my condition section for my abnormal vision, because it's such a broad topic, I've actually split this up into sudden loss of vision conditions and chronic visual loss conditions. So that is the structure of the different sections, the different OSCE topics in my OSCE doc. Not all sections are equal. There's some sections where I put in heaps of information, some sections which I haven't touched or I put in just a few dot points, just a few differential lists, and there's some sections where it's somewhere in the middle. Lights turned on. I will wrap this up. Last section, tips, i.e. what I wish I did with my OSCE doc right from the start. Firstly, I wish I started earlier. I found this document so helpful. I wish I'd found the text that I loved earlier. It was very helpful once I finally established which texts worked really well for me and had the information that I wanted. I wish that I'd properly learned how to use Word before I started the document so that I can make changes across the whole document and make the document really cohesive in just a few clicks. My document is not linked up into styles perfectly, so I would have to go through and manually change a lot of the sections for that to work. Ah, it's raining. Wrap it up. I can do it. Next, I wish I referenced it better. You'll see that I just put the author of the book or the name of the website in brackets next to the sections where I got the information. Should I reference it better in some way, maybe with footnotes, so that I could go back and find specifically where that information was later. Finally, I wish that I got together with a few, I'm getting drenched. I wish I got together with a few friends that did it. My advice would be to perhaps agree on a format and make a Google Doc with your other study mates and study groups and oh my gosh, and everybody contribute to different little bits and then you can take it and study it later. I'm gonna go, it's raining so much. Bye guys.